Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about Nebraska just dismantling Colorado for much of that game, and then Iowa State staging a big-time comeback to win the Cy-Hawk Trophy this year for the first time in quite some time, or at least for the first, I believe they lost 8 out of the last 9, if I'm not mistaken, but we're able to get this one done, and a huge win for the Cyclones there. But let's get into this big-time upset because it was wild. It was one of those games that you did not think you had to tune into, and then you looked up around the fourth quarter and said, okay, well, I guess this has to go on the main TV, because this one was insane from start to finish, and it was one of those games that it just can't happen. There's no two ways to put it. I mean, Notre Dame has this happen just about once a year, where they lose a game that they have no business losing, that they were either up in late or they were just way better of a team than the team that was coming in. They lost to Stanford and Marshall a couple of years ago, lost a game to Louisville a year ago where they gave away a lead. There were so many monikers to show you. Oh, excuse me. There were so many monikers to show you that this was going to be a team that was going to have this type of trouble. They were going to have these games where they play incredible football one week, they play terrible football the next. So it's a indictment on this program. It's an indictment on that coaching staff that you just can't get your guys ready for these games, and you can't get them ready on a consistent basis. And it's a huge worry for this team going forward. But they didn't just get, beat because some crazy things happened and one thing went one direction. No, they got beat. They got outgained by 100 yards. NIU had a better third down percentage, had more yards per pass, had more time of possession, won the turnover margin. They did everything in this game. So it wasn't like Notre Dame gave this one away. NIU beat them. They walked onto the field in South Bend and beat them. And Antonio Brown was a huge reason for that. Had 22 touches, 225 yards, and a touchdown in this game. This kid was special. He was the difference in this game and was just outright impossible for Notre Dame to get a beat on. And then on the other side of things, I think Notre Dame's got issues. There's no two ways to put it. I mean, this is a team that has so many problems on the offensive line. They're one of 5 FBS teams that doesn't have a passing touchdown up until this point. This is one of those games that just should knock you out of the college football playoff contention. I understand that if they run the table, they'll probably get in, but another reason why I think the 12-team playoff is just dumb. This is a game that should bury you. This is a game that you should not be able to recover from, and this is a game that, frankly, should never happen to Notre Dame. So when it does happen, we should punish them accordingly, which is you are no longer in the playoff. Plain and simple. I don't care if Notre Dame runs the table. I don't care if they beat everyone by 50. This is a game that they had to win. This is a game that they were coming off one of the bigger wins in week 1, and they walked into their own stadium and got beat by a team that is weaker, that is not as strong, that is less big, that is less talented, that should be worse coached, and all of these different things. That should knock them out of the playoff. Period. End of story. That's one of the reasons I just hate the 12 team is Notre Dame can still strap them up next week, and if they go undefeated the rest of the way, they're probably in your 12-team playoff. They should not be. Plain and simple. All the respect in the world to NIU. No disrespect at all to NIU in this, but come on. Notre Dame cannot lose this game and still be a playoff team. Just plain and simple. They are not an elite team in this college football world, and they do not deserve a chance to play for the national title. So I don't know what happens from here. Frankly, I think Notre Dame's going to lose another one, so it won't necessarily be a problem. But even if they don't, I don't want to see them in the playoff. This is not a top 12 team in the country. This is not a team that deserves to be playing for a chance to win a national title. Period. End of story. On the other side of things, NIU, huge shout out to NIU and Thomas Hammock. He's a former player in that program and just got them their biggest win in history. So just so cool, always incredible to watch these really awesome stories unfold throughout the college football season, and this is the biggest one so far. So incredible performance from NIU. For Notre Dame, I don't know, figure it out. They have so many problems up there when it comes to coaching, when it comes to getting these guys ready for these games that for whatever reason they feel entitled to win. That I don't know. Don't let Notre Dame into the playoff. I'll leave it at that. Just regardless of what they do going forward, do not let them into the playoff. They do not deserve a chance to play for a national title. But that's beside the point. Let's move on to Penn State and Bowling Green, because this was a gross game. There's no two ways about that. Penn State did a very, very bad job of playing complementary football throughout this game, and then in the first half, it was all the offense doing incredible things, but then the defense couldn't stop anything. In the second half, it was a lot of the offense just not doing anything on third down, and the defense having to bow up and make big-time plays down the stretch. So in the second half, I think this offense had a ton of third down missed opportunities, went 2 for 9 on third down in this game, had 7 penalties for 76 yards. Drew Aller threw a pick in the end zone that could have made it look a lot better if that wasn't a pick. A million things went wrong for Penn State, so unlike that NIU game with Notre Dame, this was one that Penn State kind of gave away just a little bit. I think Bowling Green played a really good game, but at the end of the day, you won. So I guess you're able to move on. You're able to feel okay about that and be able to kind of fix some of the issues going forward. But they got another MAC opponent next week against Kent State, and it's one of those games that you probably will overlook, and you probably should to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, if Bowling Green's going to give Penn State a problem, maybe Kent State can come in there and do the exact same thing. But I do think Penn State is going to hit the ground rolling. I do think they're still a really good team. I just think this is a little bit of a hangover from week 1, as we talked about last week. So not overly worried about this one, but definitely some things in here that make you just the slightest bit worried about what Penn State can do consistently throughout this year. Oregon escaped in this game. This was a game that, frankly, if you rewatch it, you'd be surprised that Boise State was not able to get this one done, because Boise State is awesome, and they do have the best running back in the country. If you don't think that, then hush. Ashton Jeanty is absolutely different in every single way, so that's the best running back in the country. I'm not willing to have a conversation otherwise. But if it wasn't for 2 special teams plays in this game, Oregon loses, plain and simple. There's no two ways about that. They got a punt return from Tez Johnson, 85 yards to the end zone to give Oregon a 7-point lead in this game, and frankly, that should have been the knockout punch, but it wasn't. And then Noah Whittington returned a kick to the 1-yard line and then decided to drop it, and then they got a quick recovery, which was just incredible play by number 27. Don't know his name, but at the end of the day, he might have just saved their season with picking up that ball as quickly as he did, because Noah Whittington absolutely dropped that ball before the end zone. And just stop doing that. I genuinely, every time I see it, I don't understand how that happens. Just hold it until you get in the end zone. It's not the hardest thing in the world. It's the craziest thing that happens on a consistent basis in college football. So Noah Whittington, hopefully he learns from that. But Oregon dodged a huge bullet in this game, and they still have issues. The O-line was not good in this game. Boise State got after Dylan Gabriel a lot in this game, and the run game had really nothing going. And then on the other side, you were facing a player that is just magic. Ashton Jeanty was just incredible in this game. 25 carries, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have a big-time touchdown to, I believe, tie this game late to give Boise State a shot. But this is the best player in the country right now. This is my Heisman favorite, and I understand what Quinn Ewers did in Ann Arbor was absolutely remarkable. No one is playing better football right now than Ashton Jeanty. I feel very confident in saying that, and I think he's one of those guys that it's incredible to watch this guy play football. Frankly, the fact that he stayed at Boise State is outright insane, and I'd love to see what some of the NIL deals were to get him out of Boise. But at the end of the day, Oregon did get the win. They did just enough, and you still have some big-time questions. They go to Oregon State this weekend. They have UCLA. They have Michigan State before Ohio State comes to town. So they got a lot of stuff to figure out. If they're playing this level of football, they won't even be undefeated when Ohio State comes to town, much less being undefeated when they leave. So it's one of those teams that started the season very, very slow, and you're asking a ton of questions about. Still a very capable team, but a lot of the holes are, carrying over week to week, and that is the big-time worry for this team. Let's move over to Kansas State. This is another one that they escaped in this one. Tulane's offense made it really, really tough for Kansas State in this game, and frankly, I think they could make it tough for just about everyone in the country, but in the first half, they were outright rolling on offense for Tulane, but Kansas State just controlled the second half, outscoring Tulane 24-7, forcing multiple turnovers, including the scoop and score that was the difference in the game. So Kansas State did enough. They went about their business pretty much the way that they would want to. Now, there were a couple of mistakes in there, but got to 200 yards rushing. Avery Johnson had 2 passing touchdowns and no INTs, so it went probably as smoothly as you would like on the offensive side of the ball. It was just Tulane had enough on the other side that they could match it. The defense has things to figure out. There's no doubt about that. I think this Tulane offense is awesome, but at the end of the day, Kansas State should be able to stop Tulane at least more consistently than they were in the first half. So it's going to be interesting to watch this team develop. I think Kansas State, I'm not necessarily holding too much against them in this game. Obviously, I think Tulane's going to be great because I have them in my playoff, but at the end of the day, I think it's one of those games where you came out a little bit sluggish. That's all well and good. They finished the job against a good Group of 5 team away from home, so I'm not going to hold it against Kansas State by any means. Tulane and Boise State have set themselves up in a really good spot for the CFP. There's no doubt about that. Frankly, I think they're playing second fiddle to UNLV right about now, but I think Tulane has another huge opportunity this upcoming weekend against OU that we'll get to them in a second, but there's attackable areas in that OU team. And then KSU has an out-of-conference game against Arizona on Friday, so a couple of big-time matchups for these teams coming up, and we'll see how they handle them, but definitely a big-time win for Kansas away from home against a really good Group of 5 team. So although this one would have been not great if they lost it, I do think winning it the way they did was plenty impressive for me, honestly. And then this is one that probably shouldn't be on here. I understand that Alabama won this one 42-16. It looked a lot better at the end of it. It was 14-13 going into the fourth quarter. And to be fair, the great teams turn it on when they need to. They win those games, and that's exactly what Alabama did. So no disrespect to Alabama by any means, but there are issues on this team. The O-line is a downright issue, and it's something that I did not think was going to be the problem with this team, but it really is. USF was living in the backfield of Alabama for 3.5 quarters of this game. Milroe was running for his life and never really got comfortable. On the other side of the ball, the defense had a really good day. The defense was all over the place, and I love this Kane Womack defense more and more every single week, but Jahad Campbell is playing the position he was meant to play, which is essentially just no position. The dude is so athletic, he's so dynamic that just putting him out there on the edge and letting him go make plays is the best way to go about business. I think Justin Jefferson was a great addition to that linebacker room. USF went 2 for 18 on third down throughout this game. So a really remarkable performance from this Alabama defense. They did have 13 penalties for 120 yards, 3 fumbles, just so many mistakes for this team that just cannot happen against better opponents. So it's one of those things that I talked about it going into this game, that Alabama throughout the next couple of weeks just cannot give UGA or Wisconsin anything. They just cannot give them a weakness to expose. They gave them a huge one. That offensive line is one that they're going to attack time and again, and it's one of those that I don't know if Wisconsin can take full advantage given the way that they've been playing, but UGA definitely can. So it's one of those things they're going to have to figure out very quickly, because if they play that caliber of football against UGA at home, they're losing by about 21 points, and they're asking a lot of questions about Kalen DeBoer after that game. But overall, I mean, there were so many incredible upset bids, but NIU was the one that was able to get it done. Huge shout out to Thomas Hammock and that team. Just an incredible moment. You saw the emotion on his face after the game, and you saw how much it meant to him. It's one of those moments that make college football special. So huge shout out to NIU, huge shout out to the Huskies. But let's take our last break here, and when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of a week 1 whip around. We'll go through the rest of the top 25 teams. I believe we have 8 games here to cover for you guys, so we'll get to those teams right after this, so stick with us.